So why are we talking about this? We're going to talk about banking because so many of our students in so many communities are unbanked or underbanked. And as a result of that, they spend more money to access financial services than they need to. Many of our students are underbanked or unbanked, or their families, if they're not old enough to have a bank account themselves, for many reasons. When you come from another country, it could be that financial institutions in that country were not stable. The financial system was not stable. The political system may have been unstable. So they may not trust financial institutions. That's one of the reasons. There's also a lack of awareness and a lack of knowledge about how things work in the United States. And that can make you feel apprehensive about approaching or a financial institution and asking about services, what they provide. Another big reason why so many people refuse or hesitate to get financial services is due to being document deficient. If you are an undocumented immigrant, you're going to be fearful of possibly getting deported, possibly having your information used in a way that is detrimental to you or your family. So these are some very fear-based reasons why people don't access that. So our approach to mitigating this is to give students and families information as much as possible, right? So we want to start by making them aware we have something called the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And if you have a financial institution that is backed by the FDIC, it means that your money pretty much is saved up to $250,000. If you deposit it in that financial institution that is insured by the FDIC, no matter what happens, whether the bank fails or not, you are going to be having access to your money, and your money is going to be guaranteed safe there. So that's one of the things that we want to make sure our students and the communities where we work, as much as possible, families know that. We also want to make sure they understand that the cost of being unbanked or underbanked is pretty high. I see there was a statistic that showed 10% of an individual's income is spent on accessing check cashing services. And this is something that you can get with a bank for free if you have direct deposit. When you pay for money orders, again, another very costly service. And so many families that don't have access to bank checks or checkbooks are also having to rely on this service and spending a lot of money unnecessarily due to being unbanked or underbanked. When they need loans, they go to payday lenders. And I want to make sure I explain something. Payday lenders are in service because they provide services to people who can't access those services any other way. With that being said, those services come at a higher cost. But because they don't require you to have a credit history or credit score or permanent address, all they need is, for you to be employed. That's why so many people have that as an alternative and go to that alternative, because they're the only ones giving them that service that they so desperately need. If they cannot make rent that month, that week, that's something you're going to turn to if that's your only way out. So I wanted to share a little bit about that. As I said before, we want to share with our students when we're talking about banking, when we're discussing those lessons on the importance of being banked. Let's talk about the FDIC. Let's talk about the fact that the money's safe. And overall, your money is always going to be safer in the bank. Your money is, especially if you experience higher mobility rates, you don't want anything under the mattress because you don't know how long you're going to be there. We also want to make sure they understand how much money they're going to save, all the services that the bank can support them with, and how convenient it is. It is truly very convenient to have access to these financial services from a financial institutions. And it is also a way of starting to build long-term wealth, starting to get a savings account, accessing credit once you have a savings account, once you have a little bit of money there. Having that relationship with a banker is really, or any representative from a financial institution that can guide you once you tell them what your goals, short-term, mid-term, long-term goals are, can really guide you and support you in achieving them. So at this point, I want to find out if any of you invite local bankers into your classroom, if any of you have them in your school, what that relationship is like, if you have done that in the past, or if you're considering doing that. If you could say that in the chat, I would really appreciate. And thank you all for being so participating so much in there. It could be fun to have a financial representative come into the classroom and talk about some of these financial terms. Yeah, one of the educators shared in the guidebook that I shared with you earlier, she said, it's interesting. I've been talking to my students about the importance of banking and the importance of savings, and it was falling on deaf ears. But the moment a financial representative came in and said the same thing I have been talking about, it was like a light bulb went on, and it was such a funny story. I do encourage you to check out that guidebook, because it has so many stories from educators that have been doing this a while. I thought that was really funny and wanted to share that with you. So thank you again for putting all your information on the chat pertaining to whether or not you have invited. Oh, okay. You have invited. Do you recommend someone from a private bank or credit union? Victoria asked. I'm going to talk about that now. Thank you so much. That's a perfect segue, Victoria. So as a public-private partnership, we do partner with other financial institutions. The ones you see on your screen are HAPO, Community Credit Union, Canopy Credit Union, and Express Credit Union. The reason why I have selected these three from our extensive list of partners, and again, if you want to know more about our partners, guess where you can find it? FEPPP.org. So these three financial institutions are credit unions, and the reason why I am highlighting them is because they work with newcomers, they work with credit deficient and document deficient individuals who may also lack a social security number, a permanent address, and have no credit score. This is a big issue for newcomers, because credit is not really a thing outside of the United States. If you have other financially stable nations, Germany, Great Britain, you may have heard of and used credit. But that 80% of those collectivist cultures, credit is not really, for some in the higher income brackets may access credit, may have the backing of financial institutions and may be using it, but the majority of individuals who come from other countries have not used credit or know very little about it. As a result, they come to the United States not knowing anything about credit and being completely credit deficient. Most credit unions, you need to have a certain credit score to access those financial services, but these three are the exception. They don't require you to have a credit score, and they actually help you build your credit. They have free financial coaching. They have Canopy Credit Union is one that I heard. We have been communicating with one of their representatives. He's great. I think they offer financial coaching in 70 languages. 70 languages. I asked him to repeat that a few times because I thought the internet had messed up somehow and I misheard something. No, 70 languages. I know HAPO Credit Union recently received, if I'm not mistaken, a DEI award for their incredible work in the communities in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we've been partnering with Express Credit Union, and they're really leading the way in low barrier bank accounts for individuals who don't have a social security number, who don't have a permanent address. So oftentimes you'll have what's called an individual tax identification number, or an ITIN number, when you are not a permanent resident, but you are here with working papers. Through that ITIN number, some financial institutions enable you to access services. Now, Express Credit Union is actually, if I'm not mistaken, not even needing that ITIN number and still helping individuals access some financial services. So they're really doing some magnificent work to support those who need it the most. And I wanted to share that if you guys want to invite any representatives in your classroom, you cannot go wrong with HAPO, Canopy, and Express. Now, if you cannot find anybody who can go from these institutions, please go to our website. Again, we have an extensive list of partners, and they're willing to come into the classroom and help present on what a banker does, what a bank is for, basically. Now, at this point, I want to share with you some data pertaining to entrepreneurs and how they impact our economy. There is a study out there that showed 50% of our workforce is made up of immigrants, but immigrants are 80% more likely to start their own business. And this is for many reasons. One of the reasons being that when you're new to the country, you may not know English. So you may have a hard time getting work if you don't speak the language. They also may not be familiar with our workforce, or the type of, may not have training to do the type of jobs that are in high demand. And lastly, that insecurity, not knowing where to go to look for a job, can be great motivators, because you still have a family to feed and yourself to provide for, as well as your family. You say, well, let me start my own business. This is something I know well. Many entrepreneurs start out that way.